Today I can announce with David Littleproud that the Liberals and Nationals are back in coalition, acting in the national interest to hold this awful Albanese Labor government to account. And it is a government that is failing Australians every single day. Mortgage holders are facing increased interest rates. Every single Australian is suffering from a cost of living crisis. And this government just doesn't have the answers to the pressing problems that our country faces. But we have a task to chart the course back to government. The coalition is the most enduring and successful partnership in Australia's political history. And we have a record of delivering strong and stable government. So our plan is to fix the budget, to address the cost of living crisis, to bring down personal income tax rates, to deliver red tape and cost relief to our struggling small businesses, to prosecute the really important affordable energy plan that we both worked on last year, and to do what Anthony Albanese has failed to do, back in Australians who work hard, who have enterprise, aspiration and hope and are being let down. Now, I acknowledge that this has been a difficult time. It's been a difficult time for millions of our coalition supporters and many other Australians who rely on our two great parties to provide scrutiny and national leadership. But the coalition is back together and looking to the future, not the past. We're squarely focused on representing the Australian people and fighting for their needs, their aspirations and their hopes. They deserve no less, they expect no less, and they will receive no less. I want to recognise and thank all of our colleagues, our grassroots party members and party officials who have worked with us to restore the coalition arrangements. And we've put together a clear framework that strengthens the way we work going forward. And coalition internal processes will be strengthened, including all shadow ministers signing on to shadow cabinet solidarity and codification that neither individual party is able to overturn the decisions of the shadow cabinet. So, David, we've got our first joint party room meeting here in this room on Tuesday. I'm looking forward to it. Over to you.
Well, thanks, Susan, and I am glad that we're here. And it has been that enduring relationship that has lasted for over 100 years. That means we can get to this juncture. We've got to be honest. It's been disappointing we've got to where we are, but it was over a substantive issue. A matter of principle that we weren't both afforded the time to be able to explore in a proper way. That the Albanese government tried to rush through laws so substantive around freedom of speech when the intent of both parties was to do the right thing, not just by the Jewish community, but by the Australian people, to make sure there wasn't an overreach, and we didn't have the time nor the processes afforded to both parties to achieve that. And that's the substantive issue that we're here. And that's what the Australian people need to understand. This wasn't about personalities, this was about principles that we tried to get to a position on in a short period of time that we weren't afforded a proper process. And I think that says to the Australian people, you've got a coalition that cares, that we are better together, that we are two parties. A coalition isn't one party, but we're two parties, and we've been able to work together. But when it matters, we've got to be able to say to the Australian people what we stand for, but we've got to make sure we can say to the Australian people we've got a way forward. And that's the maturity and leadership that I thank Susan for, that we've been able to say. We've got to find a better way forward. We put in these processes, that everyone is heard, that we get that opportunity, because when we are together, we get a better outcome, that we don't have those unintended consequences that Anthony Albanese will leave in overreach of freedom of speech, but we protect those Jewish communities that needs to be protected. That's the maturity and strength that our two parties have been able to show. It's not the way we wanted to do it, but I think it shows the fact that we can say to one another, we'll work through it, and we collectively work through it to make sure we got to this juncture. And say to the Australian people, we've put in processes now to ensure that both parties know exactly that one can't override the other, but in essence, that there is one body that will determine that, and that's this room. That the collective wisdom of the National Party and the Liberal Party will come together. That gives better outcomes for the Australian people. And the level of maturity we've been able to show to get to this level is important, because I think we future-proof the coalition into ensuring that we get the best outcomes. So the National Party believes that we are better together. Australia would be better with us being together. And that's why we've been able to continue to work constructively with the right intentions, with the respect that we deserve to one another to get to where we need to be. And that's now saying to the Australian people that the coalition will give you a cogent voice against a government that is failing you economically, socially, and in national security. So Susan, thank you to you and your team, and to my team, to my party room. I'm proud of the party room. Make no mistake, our culture is there's no unilateral decision. This was a big decision for our party room. I don't get to make these sort of scale of decisions myself. We do that as a team. And they were difficult decisions, but they were principled ones. But the fact that we have this relationship, that we can get this right, speaks volumes about who we are as parties and leaders and where we can go in the next 2.5 years. So thanks.
Okay, we might sort of go around the room here. Greg, I'll start with you and then come to the front.
Your allies were saying on Friday, with close supporters, that this deal was this offer from the Nats for collective pension until the 1st of March was not a serious offer, and was a joke. What changed yesterday for you to do the deal, and was it about concerns that if a deal was not done, your leadership was impaired this week?
Greg, lots of people have said lots of things, and some have been attributed to people who are not named, and some have been. The point is that we did have differences, David and I, in our party rooms. We've resolved those differences. We've strengthened our processes, and we're going forward as a united coalition to take the fight up to Labor on behalf of millions of Australians who are cheering us on, but also every Australian who knows that we need a strong, credible opposition. Out of this process, we are stronger. In strengthening those processes, we are stronger and we are determined. And the overwhelming majority of my party room knows that the coalition is stronger together.
This is your second break-up and make-up in less than a year. How can Australians really trust now that this is going to last while you two are the leaders? You had said that you cannot be part of a shadow ministry under Susan Lee.
No, if the three weren't reinstated. That was the caveat. I mean, this was, as I just articulated, was a circumstance that was put outside our control. When you talk about a bill as substantive as talking about the freedom of speech, to have literally a matter of hours to determine whether it's appropriate for the Australian people. I come to this place, the National Party comes to this place with a good conscience of making sure that when we walk into that chamber, we have scrutinised the bill. We have scrutinised it to the Australian people, that we can look them in the eye. And not just come in here and trust the government, but to actually scrutinise it. That's our job. I would have thought it's more important to the Australian people they have legislators that have the values and conviction to make sure they do their job properly. And if they're not afforded the opportunity to do it properly, then they vote against it. And so what Susan and I are saying is we have strengthened the processes to ensure that those voices in the forums, that our two parties can collectively get to a decision. When circumstances like this is thrown at us, which are unique and I don't think has ever happened in this parliament before, but such is the nature of the Albanese government that you would not say that it would not happen again, that we would say that we will future-proof this for the Australian people. That was a circumstance I don't think any of you could tell me that we have ever seen a bill as substantial as that to be given to the legislators to vote on with a matter of 4 to 5 hours to make a determination on as complex as freedom of speech. So with all due respect, what we're saying today is this was a substantive issue. It went to the very core of some of the issues in our party room around our values and principles, and we couldn't get comfort around it. And we don't come to this place just to vote blindly. We come here because we believe in something. And I'm proud of my party room. It wasn't an easy decision. And I can tell you when we got to that decision, there were people in my party room crying because they knew the substantive nature of what we were voting on and what that could lead to. But I would rather stand with the men and women of the National Party who believe in something and knew the problems that would cause, but they believed so passionately this was wrong, then I'd rather look to the people of Australia in the eye and say we did it because we believed in it. We understand that it wasn't perfect, it looked ugly, but we've had the courage to come back and say we're going to make sure it never happens again. That's leadership, that's courage, and I stand with my party room with what they've done all the way through.
Yes, ma'am.
Given this reunification today, are you ruling out any further splits within the coalition and the Nationals walking away again? And have you given Susan Lee any assurances that you won't take that measure for a third time?
We've given them to each other, and the reality is I don't make a unilateral decision around coalition agreements. My party room does, and the reality is that we made it very clear: if the ground rules are laid down, then we're prepared to live by them. And that's the reality of where the National Party will sit. And if we're given a forum to be able to express our view, and we're not good enough to win it, we've got to cop it on the chin. That's the beauty of democracy. You just can't win all the time in a democracy. Sometimes you're on the wrong side of it. But we've got the strength in our character to put a cogent argument, to back ourselves, and to hope that together, as a collective, that we get to a position. So I'm very comfortable, and we've said to one another, this is where we can look each other in the eye and say, this is the team that will go to the next election, that will be together and put those policies that will fix the problems that Anthony Albanese is delivering to every household every day since he's been
Exactly.
here.
Paul.
To both of you, when you think about the millions of supporters who vote for your parties and hope that you become elected, do you feel sorry or ashamed about how the last few weeks have played out? Will you directly apologise to them? And at a personal level between the two of you, do you trust the other person individually?
Well, let me answer that, and obviously David can as well. Yes, 100% I trust David, and I value and respect the National Party as one of the two great parties with, as I said, the greatest political partnership in our history. And that's important, and I think that has shone through. With respect to the millions of supporters, I do acknowledge that it has been a difficult time, but I want to say to them today, we are focused on the future, not the past. We are back in coalition, we are stronger, differences have been resolved, and we know that every single day we will be holding this Anthony Albanese failing Labor government to account. And you can count on us every single day as a united team to work very, very hard for you.
I wouldn't be standing here today if I didn't trust Susan Lee and I didn't trust the Liberal Party. The National Party wouldn't do that. That's not how we operate. We're up front. We look people in the eye, we work them out, and then we decide whether we back them or not. And if, well, if you can, do you want me to answer the question, or do you want to have a commentary? The reality is, quite clearly, I wouldn't be standing here and the National Party wouldn't be standing here if we didn't believe it. But we took a principled position. We took a principled position on what we believe in. That might be a foreign concept to someone like you, but there are people in this parliament that really do believe in the values of what they're sent here to do. And so,
hang on, Greg. Look, we're just going to be a little bit procedural here. Charles?
Thank you. Is there still room for individual parties to have positions like the Nationals did on nuclear, or like the Nationals did on the Voice, or like the Nationals did on net zero before the joint party room has made a decision?
Well, as David said, this room, the joint party room, has primacy, and all sorts of discussions go on within our individual party rooms, and sometimes between people in both party rooms with issues that they jointly care about. And there is primacy of the joint party room when it comes to that final coalition policy, and we've made that clear, and the statement actually outlines the details of our processes.
You won the leadership against Angus Taylor on the back of support from moderate Liberals, centre-right Liberals and those who are unaligned. They've watched you make a decision on net zero that they didn't necessarily agree with. They stood by you. They watched you through this split. They didn't want to reunite with the Nationals. Are you concerned at all that this decision is going to shift numbers towards Angus Taylor and ultimately end your leadership?
Well, with respect, they are your characterisations of a series of events and opinions. They are not mine. And I want to repeat what I said. The overwhelming majority of my party room knows that the coalition is stronger together. And I know that that feeling is shared in the Nationals party room. And that is why we know together that we are best placed to hold this government to account, to deliver on our positive plan for Australia, and to work hard every single day to do just that.
Earlier this week, you took the proposal for a 6-month suspension of the national senators
to your party room. Why wasn't that done for this process? And are you confident that this will be accepted widely by all the Liberal Party?
Yes, I am, for the simple reason that I'm in touch with individual members of my party room one-on-one all the time, and I know they share the feeling that is demonstrated here today, and that is clearly shared by all of our supporters and well understood, that the coalition is stronger together and will work best in the interests of Australians who are not on the Labor side of politics to hold a Labor government to account. Now, as I said, we've resolved our differences and we've strengthened our processes, and you can see some detail of what they are in the statement. Yes.
It's hardly surprising that you're saying everything's good, happy families now, etc. But there's been a lot of talk over the past 3 weeks about the extent of the sledging, of the negativity, of the anger between the two sides. According to one report, you had Mr. Littleproud yelling resign at you. How can we believe, how can the Australian people believe the positive message you're trying to put forward today when so much has happened over the past 3 weeks that would suggest that, despite what you're saying, everything is not all good?
Well, they can, because we are standing here together and we have made a strong, clear statement about the coalition. And yes, people do get passionate about the things that are important to them. People who come here are passionate about a range of different things, and that passion gets expressed. And I understand that. We all understand that. The point is that today, after strengthening these processes and resolving our differences, we are firmly focused on the future. And that is a very important message.
And I think it's important to say, while I get you guys get plenty of backgrounding and plenty of tips, the reality is that Susan and I were talking through this ourselves and kept the dialogue going. So while the titillation of people making comments to you on background, the reality was, behind the scenes, the relationship continued to get to this juncture.
Did you tell Ms. Leader to resign?
No, I'm not going to get into personal conversations anyway. This was acted in the most professional way all the way through. Yes, there were some terse conversations about us being passionate about getting back together, but it was because we could have that. We could have those conversations that we got to this juncture. And I think that shows the maturity of where we both are. That despite what you might have been, I don't deal in gossip, where you might hear what people want to ventilate, the reality was that Susan and I were working calmly behind the scenes trying to get this show back to where it needed to be. And I think we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't.
Yes, ma'am.
We've been talking a lot the last couple of weeks about the way the right side of politics is fractured in this country. If the coalition is to return to government, it probably needs to pick up city seats. There are moderates in your party who are saying that needs to be the focus. Equally, you know, the Nationals and the right wing of the Liberal Party are trying to claw back votes from One Nation. How do you make sense of all of that, and how does reforming the coalition help you with either of those?
By bringing together the two great parties of government in the past and once again government in the future of the Liberal and National parties. That is the best way that we do that. Now, you know, One Nation is broadly a party of protest, very good at identifying problems. We often hear the conversation from them about the problems, not so good at identifying what the solutions are. But what I know, every election, what we fight hard to do is for people to give us their number one vote. And we're stronger together doing exactly that. And we've got a very positive plan that backs in the aspirations, the hope, the desires, and the real passions of ordinary Australians who are being so let down right now.
But just understand this. I'm from Western Queensland. The challenges and the aspirations of people in Warwick or Longreach or Cunnamulla is no different to someone living in Sydney, Melbourne or Brisbane. They're still facing the same challenges that Anthony Albanese's giving them. Higher energy bills, higher mortgage bills, can't get childcare. The reality is there's not a big difference between city and country. Those people who live in those towns face the same challenges, and that's why we do provide the solutions. We don't just find the problem. That's an easy thing to do in politics. What our great coalition does is find the solution that transcends right across our great nation, whether it be small town or whether it be capital city. That's why we come up with the solutions for the Australian people.
Tim.
Susan Lee, two related points, if I might. First, how would you characterise your standing in your party room today were there a vote? Majority, strong majority, minority, your words. And a related point, have you had any indication that Angus Taylor might leave the front bench and challenge you this coming week? Any indication?
I am very confident of the overwhelming support of my party room. They elected me 9 months ago to lead. I said then I was up for the job. I'm up for the job now. And we together, I'm very proud of my team, have done much already to hold this bad Labor government to account, with policies on fixing the budget, on lowering income taxes, on working across the coalition for affordable, reliable energy. And we're soon to announce migration policy principles as joint party rooms. And every one of my party members will be enfranchised, as they have been every step of the way. So I want to say this, I'm proud of the team I lead, and you only have to look at the work that they did in the Economics Committee just a couple of days ago, making clear, the Reserve Bank Governor made clear that government spending is contributing to rising pressure on interest rates, on the cost of living pressures that Australians are facing. It's just one example. So while, as David said, a lot of members of the Fourth Estate like to talk about things that quite frankly are inside of the bubble, what I know is that by focusing on the future and focusing on Australians who sent us here to work for them, we will win every day.
You've spoken about...
Just might keep going around here to...
It hasn't even been a year since the election, and we've already seen the Nationals and the Liberals disagreeing on multiple policy areas. If you get a situation where the Nationals party room is being overruled by the joint party room, or their disagreements there again, are you concerned that that could force more members of the Nationals to defect the coalition?
Well, I don't accept the premise of your question that there's been multiple disagreements. Well, if you look at it, the coalition has a net zero policy that we work together. So the premise of your question doesn't make sense. The reality is that we were charged with the responsibility to come to this place and make a decision on a complex bill around freedom of speech, on hate speech, that we were only afforded by Anthony Albanese 4 or 5 hours to determine. We couldn't get comfort with that. That is the only difference that we've had as a coalition in terms of policy. In fact, the policies that we've been able to formulate have been done in cooperation. So I don't think that question actually has the premise that you'd like it to.
I'm being democratic here for those who haven't asked questions. Yes.
Mr. Littleproud, it's all well and good to say that you have the same policy when you go into the chamber. Generally, that's correct. But in the last few years, you have had different views on the voice, on net zero, most recently on hate speech laws. How can you ensure that you are still speaking to your constituents about things that they are concerned about without taking on the view of codification?
Well, the voice wasn't a piece of legislation. It was a referendum that we're going to go to. And
sure, but you still have different views on it.
No, we didn't. Ultimately, we both had the same opinion in terms of the voice, and
right.
we proved to the Australian people that the coalition was right with respect to the voice. That it was just another layer of bureaucracy that wasn't going to change the lives of the people I represent, that have the lived experience in remote places, that weren't going to help them. So the Australian people listened to what the coalition got to a unified position on. So what, in terms of legislation that comes through here, ultimately this room will determine it. Now, if you're part of the shadow ministry, you're bound by the decision of what happens out of this room, and if you want to break that, then there's a consequence. There's nothing substantive more than that that we'll understand. But so long as that forum provides the opportunity for voices to be heard, then that's a good thing. That's where you get better outcomes, where people can actually express their views. That's how you get better legislation. You get better policy settings, because you call on the collective wisdom of our great room and the diversity of people we have in this room that have skills outside of being union officials or parliamentary hacks, that actually have life experience in the real world. And that's a good thing. And I think that's something we should celebrate as a democracy, that we do have that diversity in the coalition.
And it's something that the Labor Party does not have. And it's worth noting. Yes, you. Yes,
Mr. Littleproud, so can you guarantee there will be no further fractures under this leadership?
Yes. And this is the reality, is why we've made sure that an extreme circumstance that I don't think in 105 years of the coalition, a coalition has seen, where you have seen an inept government bring in a bill that's provided to us at 6:13 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, expects us to vote on it by lunchtime that day. I mean, really, the question to Anthony Albanese is, how serious does he take the Australian people when he does that to their legislators? I don't foresee a government beyond Anthony Albanese doing that, but I can tell you a coalition government wouldn't do that. We would have had a better process where the Parliament came together to actually help design that constructively together, not in a matter of hours, but over days and weeks, which is what most normal bills are done.
Anyway, let's keep moving. We're going back to work for the Australian people.